Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our chats with Emily. We turn now to poem 17 of the Johnson edition, Baffled for Just a Day or Two. I find this a fascinating little poem because I think Emily is playing some interesting games. She is going to be talking about poetic inspiration in ways that I find quite remarkable. Now, our assumption is that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net down that left-hand side, all the way from our introductory set of comments up through poem 16 that we just finished recently with Cup. Our background information here is fascinating. This poem was sent to her pal Elizabeth Holland with a rosebud, and to that degree it was attached, and to that degree it may be that the unexpected maid that's referenced here has something to do with Holland. Surely this poem can be read, no question, as a love poem, but I see this as an example of how Emily is having a whole lot of fun playing games with sexual language, but she's actually talking about poetic inspiration. Let's just enjoy the poem. Baffled for just a day or two, embarrassed, not afraid, encounter in my garden with an unexpected maid. She beckons, and the woods start. She nods, and all begin. Surely such a country I was never in. Now, there's no question this poem can be read as a poem celebrating her love or affection for Miss Holland. But I think that there's something else going on here potentially, and it starts for me with this use of the word baffled. Now, when we hit poem 69, we're going to hear this again. Poem 69, lo at my problem bending, another problem comes, larger than mine, serener, involving statelier sums. I check my busy pencil, my figures file away. Wherefore my baffled fingers thy perplexity. This use of the word baffled, confusing. In other words, it is often the case that for poets and for writers, inspiration, why does it come? Why does it go? And notice it's baffled for just a day or two. And then notice embarrassed. And then I think the most central idea of much of Emily Dickinson's poetry is this idea of not afraid. Her willingness to be courageous. She is the new Odysseus. She is going to go on the journey, even if it takes her into unexpected places. Notice the encounter in my garden, an unexpected maid. No doubt. This could obviously be Miss Holland, but it could also be a symbol, this rosebud, the symbol of the muse of poetry. Notice, she beckons, that is to say, the invitation, the invocation of the muse, we might even say. The woods start, obviously there's the potentialities that are all part of this. She approval, and all begin, notice the repetition of begin and end, the last word with the exclamation point. Surely such a country I was never in. This idea that the country of poetic inspiration is for her something that just kind of blows her away, challenges her in so many different ways. Obviously, we've got the potentiality of Dante, the pilgrim, taking his journey as we gave lectures at learnstrong.net. What am I going to do with a poem like this at 2A? Well, I think she is talking, now obviously this poem can be read as her tribute poem to Holland, but I think it's about poetic inspiration being what? Mystery, challenge, baffled. Baffled is the way she will say it. And notice as well that this idea of to be the symbol of the rose, that is to say, the poetic inspiration. But I love this key word, baffled, and notice embarrassed but then not afraid. In other words, when the poet or the writer finally decides to take on the challenge of being the writer, what has that got to feel like? Now, obviously, we could be sitting behind the half-open door with Emily, and we could be asking her through that half-open door, hey, what did you mean in this poem? Were you talking about your love of Holland? Were you talking about poetic inspiration? And she could say, no, you totally missed it on both counts. Possible. It's very possible. At 3A, I love to relate this to the great John Keats. And she obviously was very influenced by Keats. And you'll remember that Keats, when he went and he saw those Elgin marbles, you remember that little sonnet, my spirit is too weak, mortality weighs on me like unwilling sleep, in each imagined pinnacle and steep of godlike hardship tells me I must die. Like a sick eagle looking at the sky, he was already beginning to cough up blood at that point. We've talked about this at learnstrong.net. But I love the idea that when you go to visit those Elgin marbles at the London Museum, and I'm hopeful that all of you will be able to do that at some point, that you're not only going to find yourself thinking about Keats, but I find myself thinking about Emily, and especially this poem. That is to say, what is it like when the muse nods at you, and you go, okay, let's do this thing, into the woods we go. At 3B, obviously, the question is, what was a time when you were baffled by a challenge, but you took up that challenge nonetheless, And for you, much like for Frost, taking that road less traveled, you are blown away by the possibility of that muse nodding to you. Thank you.